Americans were polled and demonstrated through their answers that they care deeply about the future of democracy in the United States of America, but they have placed different definitions of values as to what the risks to America's democracy was.
And now to continue the case for the opposition, I look to Dr. Leslie Vinjamuri.
It is an honor to be here with you. It has been an extraordinary evening already. I feel like I have lost the through line in what has been an extraordinary series of commentary and comments and powerful, sometimes persuasive arguments. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that America's best days will be ahead of us if we vote against the proposition and ensure that we all do everything we can to ensure that America's democracy does not fail. The future of U.S. democracy is in the hands of Americans. It's also in the hands of all of those who have a very powerful effort and ability to influence the trajectory of the United States of America, not least those of you here in Oxford. So let me say a few words. The vote, I believe, like our previous speaker, that one of the main reasons, even though the proposition was set before the US election, one of the main reasons that we're here tonight is because of the election of Donald Trump. 4 long weeks and 2 days ago, it feels to me like it's been months. It does feel like we are on the other side of a very significant divide. However, the former president and the future president of the United States of America was elected by 77 million voters in the United States of America. He won the popular vote. This isn't a case in which it was the fault of the Electoral College. He won the vote in an election where polls suggest that Americans on both sides of the aisle thought that democracy was very much at stake. Americans were polled and demonstrated through their answers that they care deeply about the future of democracy in the United States of America, but they have placed different definitions of values as to what the risks to America's democracy was. As we all know, for many people in the Republican Party, very far from all, the woke culture of the United States of America is a threat to their perception of their own individual freedom. It's a perfectly legitimate way for a number of people to feel, and we would be remiss not to give it serious consideration. So let me say a few words of context some of which we've heard tonight, but some of which we haven't. The US is the wealthiest economy in the group of 7 advanced industrialized countries by a very long stretch. It is a highly diverse and innovative country of more than 345 million people. And it is also a country that is set to become a majority-minority country somewhere around 2044. So in just 2 decades, white Americans will no longer be a majority in the country. The wealthiest segment of the US population, as measured by the median household income, are not white American families. In fact, white American families are only the 9th highest income earners in the United States of America. The highest collection of Americans as measured by median household income are Indian Americans who earn over 100K per year. I give you these facts to make the case, which is very clearly a social and economic reality, which is that the United States is a country which is going through a fundamental, even radical domestic transition in its society, in its economy, in its institutions, and in its politics. And if we expect that to be smooth, untroubled, uncontested, even, teleological, unidirectional, without dramatic contention, or anything even simply like something which was profound and transformative that we've heard reference to, the civil rights movement, I think we mistake the moment that we're in. And if we vote against America's democracy and its capacity to transform and accept the new social reality in which Americans will live, we're voting against one of, not the only, but one of the greatest social experiments on earth. I simply would not have come tonight had I been asked to argue for the other side. There are other measures that matter. Some of them have been noted, but let me just remind ourselves. Participation in voting in the United States is low by the standards of wealthy democracies, but the trajectory is good. From around 54% of people turning out to vote in 2000 to 67% in 2020 and 65% in 2024. In midterm elections, which nobody used to care about, the trajectory has also been very much upwards. In 2024, 94% of Republicans and 86% of Democrats said that they had confidence in the vote and the fair and freeness of the United States presidential elections. In those elections, which as any of you who voted know, there are many down ballot issues, 7 of the 10 constitutional amendments that were on the ballots for people, depending on the state in which they voted for, 7 of the 10 constitutional amendments that were put forward to protect abortion rights passed. If you look at some of the data on women, we tend to talk just about voting. 41% of the jobs in healthcare are held by women. 31% of the jobs in the financial sector are held by women. 10% of the jobs running Fortune 500 countries in the United States are held by women, 6% in Europe, and far fewer at the Oxford Union, and in the position of those who are able to debate. So there is a lot of change. There's a lot of change that is in a direction which is liberal, which isn't to negate anything that's been said. But we should also recognize that despite all of the measures that we've heard on questions of voting, on questions of participation, on questions of expansion and regression of rights, we failed utterly to talk about the diffusion of power in the United States across 50 states, multiple cities, powerful research universities, a phenomenally robust and resilient civil society, the strongest civil society in the world by most measures, one that has been willing to take a hit. By some polls, 10% of that 345 million population participated actively in the Black Lives Matter protests during the COVID pandemic. 10% of the United States population came out and participated in those protests. That's what it means to have a democracy that is not failing. It is a democracy that is active in pushing back against the restriction of rights, against the violence against minorities. I do want to say, as I begin to wrap up, why I think it is that we're so deeply and profoundly concerned about what Donald Trump will mean for the future of democracy in the United States. I think it does link to this broader question of the social and economic transformation that the United States is going through. But there are really two parts of it. One is that we've held, as we've heard, America to a tremendously high standard. Our expectation of the US is high for at least two reasons. And the most important one is probably because America speaks big words. It talks big language about freedom and inequality. And I did hear the word hypocrisy said at least once, and it was a very important word. America's hypocrisy is notorious, none more than to the people across the world who have been on the wrong end of America's power and its use of military force and its violation of rights. So why are we worried about Donald Trump's election? For two reasons. One is we're worried that he will undo that social transformation and the institutions that have to be transformed in order to make that experiment work. We're worried that Project 2025 really is the plan, and that it's not really the thing that it could be, which is about making government more efficient, less wasteful. The Department of Government Efficiency that Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk are going to run is, in the words of Fareed Zakaria, one of the most exciting and most terrifying ideas out there. It is not without a legitimate purpose, but we worry because it's in the hands of Donald Trump. We worry about Schedule F, and we worry about the abuse of rights. But on the global stage, there's also a very important reason why we worry, and this, I think, is where I'd like to close. We worry because the big bet of America's democracy was that America would also make the world safe for democracy, a phrase that we all know, that America would create, sustain, and contribute to an international order in which it would play by the rules, create and sustain open markets, invest in security commitments with its allies and partners and friends in order to provide a space in which democracies could succeed. And Donald Trump is calling our bet on that great promise of America's past 7.5 decades. And that, I think, is where much of the struggle will be played out. Thank you.